Welcome to G-Man Gaming and Reviews. Today we're diving into the most secret chapter in Warhammer 40,000, the Grey Knights. If you're gearing up to play Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate Daemonhunters, or you just want to know why these silver armored psykers are the Imperium's last word against the Abyss, this is your beginner's lore guide. Let's get sanctified. Okay, so just in case you're wondering why this is a podcast, I have decided to switch over to a podcast format, which will be getting uploaded on YouTube as well as other places. Just simply put, because it's easier for me to get these out. I don't really have a lot of time to do video editing, and it's not really my strong suit. I will be doing, like, with game guides and stuff like that, I will be actually doing videos. But for the most part, when it comes to, like, lore, or reviews, most likely it'll be podcasts. Alright, so let's talk about the Grey Knights. The reason I'm talking about the Grey Knights is that I just recently started playing again Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate Daemonhunters, and I thought that if I'm going to do a review of the game, which I am planning to do, I probably should talk about who the Grey Knights are for those non-Warhammer people, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So, the Grey Knights are the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Malleus, the Inquisition branch that hunts demons. They don't garrison worlds or conquer sectors. They appear, banish, and disappear. Every single Grey Knight is a psyker, trained to wield the warp with iron discipline and ritual purity. For those of you who are completely unfamiliar with Warhammer 40k, just in case there are those of you who are watching, or listening, sorry. So, the Grey Knights are a chapter of Space Marines. They are actually one of the most secretive chapters of the Space Marines. Now, the Space Marines are genetically engineered warriors who basically serve the Imperium of Man, which is set in the 41st millennium, right? So they're basically super soldiers. Now, the thing that makes the Grey Knights really interesting is the Grey Knights are like the super soldiers of the super soldiers. So to put it into perspective, for every one Space Marine, there is like, I think, 1 million or 1 billion regular soldiers, right? And for every 1,000 Space Marines, there is one Grey Knight. So the Grey Knights are literally one of the most powerful Space Marine chapters in the entire game, in the entire setting, right? And the thing that makes them really unique is that every single one of them is a psyker. Now, for those of you who don't know what a psyker is, in the Warhammer 40k universe, there's basically two material realms. There's the material realm and the immaterial realm. The immaterial realm is known as the warp, right? Now, these two realms are linked to each other. Now, psykers are basically like the magicians or the wizards of the setting, and they draw their magical power from the warp. That's how they use to cast their spells and their abilities, right? Now, the thing about the warp, though, is the warp is not friendly, right? There are various demonic entities in the warp that can use a psyker's mind to break free from the warp. And for the most part, all the entities in the warp are hostile to mankind, right? So, psykers are always sanctioned to make sure that they can withstand the dangers of the warp. Now, the thing that makes the Grey Knights unique is that the Grey Knights' job, which I didn't say before, their job is to literally hunt demons, right? They are the Imperium's best weapon against demons, right? So, right? So that's what makes the Grey Knights unique. Every single one of them is a psyker, right? Now, for the most part, when they organize in squads, what they do is they channel their psychic energy towards the leader of the unit, and that leader does various psychic powers. So that's actually one of the things that makes it very interesting, is the fact that they are very heavily so their psychic powers are a big part of what makes them unique. The one interesting thing that the reason why they're called the Grey Knights is because they wear grey. Now, originally, the reason that they had the grey, I believe, was because they were supposed to be nondescript. In other words, they didn't want to stand out because they're a secretive chapter. But nowadays, especially the models are quite distinctive. So next, we're going to talk about the origins and the secrecy of the Grey Knights. So, at the end of the Horus Heresy, the Emperor lies mortally wounded. Malcador the Sigillite forms an ultra-secret project of 8 hand-picked proto-Astartes who become the foundation of a chapter designed solely to fight demons. Their gene seed is mythically linked to the Emperor, symbolizing incorruptible purity. Their homeworld Titan sits in a soul system reefed in wards and secrecy. Where the Grey Knights fight, memories get erased. The price of victory is silence. So, what that means is that one of the things that makes them unique, so there's a couple of things that were mentioned here. So, if you're not familiar with the Warhammer 40k universe, what the Horus Heresy was so the Emperor of Man, who was like a gifted psyker and scientist, created the Space Marines to be his super soldiers, right? And what happened during the Horus Heresy was about half the Space Marine chapters turned traitor and started waging a war on the Imperium of Man. So that's what the Horus Heresy refers to. Now, the Horus Heresy created numerous changes in the way Space Marines are organized, but it was this. So one of the things that's the guiding principles of the Grey Knights is to be incorruptible, right? Because chaos, the forces of chaos and the demons, when we say chaos, we're referring to those who worship the warp, right? They have a habit of corrupting, right? That's one of the things that they do. And I might go into a later episode on that where I just talk about the forces of chaos. But just know that chaos likes to corrupt, right? And so the fact that their gene seed, the Grey Knights' gene seed, is linked to the Emperor, and one of the things that's interesting about them is they're the only chapter of Space Marines that has never had any Space Marines of their chapter turn traitor, right? So they're known for being incorruptible. So next we're going to talk about the organization and ranks of the Grey Knights. So the Grey Knights organize into brotherhoods led by Grandmasters. So on the field you'll see Justicar's leading kill teams, Interceptors teleporting into the backline, Purgators laying down sanctified heavy fire, Purifiers channeling holy flame to scour corruption, and Paladins are the chapter's elite shield wall, plus Apothecaries, Librarians, and Chaplains. So, when the foe is colossal, a knight climbs into a Nemesis Dreadnought, a walking Godslayer frame meant to duel greater demons. And there's legends like Calder, Dragor, Castle and Crow, and Voldus headline their myth. One of the things that makes the Grey Knights very different from the other Space Marine chapters is the other Space Marine chapters are meant to be good at all-round warfare, whereas the Grey Knights are specialized towards killing demons. That's literally their role. So next we're going to talk about the Grey Knights' Wargear and Doctrine. So Grey Knight Wargear is both technology and prayer. Their Aegis armor is etched with wards. Stormbolters mount to their vambraces for relentless close quarters fire. Their signature is the Nemesis fourth weapon, which is a sword, halberd, falcon, demon hammer, or warding staff, each a psychic amplifier. Their special munitions, psycannons, silencers, and incinerators are designed to hurt things that shouldn't exist. Tactically, they strike by teleportation, bind with rights, banish with willpower, and retreat before the wider Imperium even knows that they're there. One of the things that's very unique about the Grey Knights is that they use teleport packs, right? Which is what I talked about with the Interceptors before. Now, the Grey Knights are unique in that only they and one other chapter can use the teleport packs, because the way that teleport packs work is that they use the warp to get someone from one place to another, and normally even Space Marines couldn't do that without going insane or turning into monsters. But the Grey Knights can do that because of their mastery of the warp. They are literally almost immune. They are immune to chaos, right? Whereas other chapters, there's only one other chapter that I know that does this called the Blood Ravens, which I'll talk about in another episode. They're related to another. Their original creation was from the Dawn of War series, which I'll talk about in another video, another podcast. But yeah, that's one of the things that makes them very interesting. So all their weapons revolve around killing demons, right? So we're going to talk about the inquisitorial link now with the Grey Knights. So they answer to the Ordo Malleus. So that means they have high inquisitorial authority. They can commandeer resources and an obsession with secrecy. If you see a demon and then you see a Grey Knight, odds are you won't remember either. So the point is that the Ordo Malleus is one of the three main, I suppose you could say, chapters of the Inquisition, which I'll talk about in another video. The Inquisition is pretty much the masters of mankind, or the lords. There are only like the High Lords, other Inquisitors, and the High Lords of Terror above them. So they really are at the top of the Imperium of man. And I will do another lore guide on just the Inquisition because they're very interesting. But that basically means they are the militant hand of the Ordo Malleus. Also, the Ordo Malleus is also known as the Daemonhunters. Right? That's their colloquial name. Why are the Grey Knights different? So unlike other Space Marine chapters, they are famously untainted. The lore holds that none have fallen to chaos. They're selected for unbreakable minds, shaped by brutal rites, and clad in armor that is as much liturgy as ceramite. They use the warp but do not let it use them. So that's really what really makes the Grey Knights different. And I have to say, if you've ever seen the models, they're absolutely beautiful. In Warhammer Fantasy, which I'll talk about in another video, Bretonnia is my favorite faction. The reason I fell in love with them is because they're knights with individual heraldry. The Grey Knights are very similar. Even though they wear great, they normally have like these shoulder plates that have like individual heraldry, which is one of the reasons why I love the models. Let's talk about the way that the Daemonhunters, the way that the way that they play in the game, right? So the Daemonhunters translates that identity into systems you can feel. So specifically referring to Chaos Gate, Daemonhunters, classes mirror roles. So Justicar is a leader / tank and buffs. Interceptor is a teleport assassin. Purgator is the heavy weapons with heavily sanctified guns. Apothecary is wound recovery, with advanced unlocks like Paladin, Purifier, Librarian, Chaplain, and the Nemesis Dread Knight. So they have Wargear like the Nemesis halberds, swords, hammers, stormbolters, psycannon, silencers, incinerators. So I haven't really touched, and they behave like the lore suggests, baneful to warp spawn, right? So I haven't really touched on the weapons, so I'll touch on them now. So the main weapon that the Grey Knights use is the Stormbolter. So this is one of the things that's unique about the Grey Knights, is that unlike other chapters of Space Marines that generally use bolters, each Grey Knight generally uses a Stormbolter. So the thing about a Stormbolter is, if we're going to talk about bolters, what a bolter is, it's a very futuristic version of a gun. What happens is it shoots these rounds that they drill into the target and then they literally explode. Now, Stormbolters are unique in that they're able to be mounted on the glove of a Space Marine, and they can fire them. So they're basically two bolters that are linked together that fire. And so the big advantage of having this is that the Stormbolters are able to hold a melee weapon in one hand and use and actually have a ranged weapon in the other. So that's what Stormbolters are. They're like futuristic. They're like a submachine gun version of a bolter. Psycannons are basically just big bolters that have like special psychic rounds. Incinerators are just sanctified flamethrowers. And silencers, I think, are just like a long-range weapon. And that was the Grey Knights in a purity-sealed nutshell. Next up, I'll review Chaos Gate Daemonhunters and how well it captures the lore in its classes, campaign pacing, and tactical feel, and where it takes creative license. If this helped, drop a like, sub for a review, and in the comments please tell me which Grey Knight role do you want to deep dive on first, or who would you like me to do a lore guide on next, or what game you would like me to review. This is G-Man Gaming and Reviews, signing off.